Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So a while back, I built a 99 land commander deck, and many of you out there seem to really enjoy that concept. I definitely enjoy tinkering with some interesting, unique, and off-the-wall builds. And since that 99 lands deck came out, I also built a deck with 97 lands, and that one is quite spicy as well. Now, don't check out those episodes quite just yet, because on this episode, well, we've got another very high land count. Not quite as high as the previous two, but still this deck is 96 lands. So what in the world is this deck and what does it want to do? Well, let's jump into it to find out. So this deck is built around the mono-black Kaldheim Commander, Varaggoth Blood Sky Sire. It's a 2/3 Demon Rogue with Death Touch that costs 2 and a black. It has both pay 1 and a black, target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. And again, boast essentially means that you can only activate this ability if this creature attacked this turn and only once each turn. So this is kind of like a vampiric tutor commander. Simply by attacking and paying 2 mana when we do so, we can just go get whatever card we want and put it right on top of our library for us to draw later. And yeah, since it's a 96 land deck, obviously this deck revolves around a couple of cards, one in particular, and well, we want to be able to get to that consistently. So being able to tutor for that is incredibly important, and actually, so is hiding what we are tutoring for. Or maybe I should say, by not showing what we are tutoring for, our opponents might not realize what we're up to, whereas if they actually did see the tutored card, they might get pretty nervous. And we don't like it when our opponents get nervous, because when our opponents get nervous, well, they might just start targeting us and trying to stop what we're doing. But if literally all we have in play are a couple of swamps, this commander, and we just tutored for a card on turn 4, no big deal! Now again, Varaggoth does have Death Touch, so our opponents are going to have a hard decision when it comes to actually blocking Varaggoth, but that really doesn't matter to us, though we can pretend it does. Because all we need to do are actually just set ourselves up for that one tutor, and things get pretty crazy. Our opponents are probably assuming that we actually want to tutor multiple times with this commander, but again, we just need the one. So if they block and take it out, no biggie. So again, our turns simply go land, 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 and again, since we have 96 lands in this deck, yeah, that's going to happen every single time. Then commander, next turn, attack, pay the 2, and tutor up this specific card. And of course, that card is the golden pig of this deck, which is the number 1 card out of our 99. And the golden pig for this deck is Ad Nauseam. Ad Nauseam is an absolutely incredible card with some absolutely disturbing art. It's an instant 4/3 black that says reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. You may repeat this process any number of times. So this is a very interesting and unique card that again can come out of absolutely nowhere. Again, we talked about the turn order process for this deck, and this fits in perfectly. Turn 1 land, turn 2 land, turn 3 land, then commander. Turn 4 land, attack with commander, boast, get this on top. Next turn, I mean, even if your commander survived or not, really doesn't matter all that much again. Maybe just, keep your commander back for blocking. That's what you're doing, right? You're keeping your commander back for blocking and you're just holding some mana up. Then, right before your turn, cast Ad Nauseam and your opponents are going to have some horrified looks on their faces, much like this lovely individual, in the art here. Again, we've got 96 lands in this deck, and this kind of a build works perfectly with Ad Nauseam. We can reveal card after card after card and basically lose no life through the entire process. Again, lands technically have a converted mana cost of 0, because they don't have a mana cost, so we lose no life for getting a land off the top of our library into our hand, so of course we're going to keep repeating. And actually, every single time we do this, the most amount of life that we will ever lose is 2. That's right, not including Ad Nauseam or our commander, the total converted mana cost in this deck is 2. And that, of course, is the total converted mana cost of the other 2 cards in this deck, because, again, we've talked about the 96 lands, Ad Nauseam and the commander to make 98, so we've got 2 left to discuss. Let's do that now. And Sickening Dreams is the fantastic card that is going to lose us 2 life. It's a sorcery for 1 in the black, and its Oracle text reads, as an initial cost to cast this spell, discard X cards. Sickening Dreams deals X damage to each creature and each player. So that's quite the spicy card, especially when you have basically your entire deck in your hand. Now, I do want to point out with Ad Nauseam, with the way that I described using it, again, at the end of the turn before yours, you are going to want to leave 1 card on the top of your library still, because if you don't leave 1 card on your library, well, then when you go to draw, right after your upkeep, you lose. Regardless, the vast majority of the time, you're going to have enough cards in your hand to take out every single player with the damage from this spell. I guess also all the creatures too, which really doesn't matter when you're taking out the players. I mean, if my quick math in my head is correct here, you're probably going to have around like 85 or so cards that you can discard. So as long as everyone's got 85 or less life, you can take them all out. Now, obviously, that includes yourself as well, so we need a way to break parity, and to make this apply to us just a little differently. So if we don't want the game to end in a draw, well, we need to utilize 1 other card. And that card would be Dark Sphere. This is a very old card. I mean, it was printed all the way back in the Dark, which came out, I think, in 1994, so yeah, quite a long time ago. Regardless, it's an artifact for 0, and its Oracle text reads, tap, sacrifice Dark Sphere. The next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent half that damage rounded down. Yeah, this is a weird old artifact, but it is perfect for what we need. So whereas our opponents and every single creature on the board is going to face the entire wrath of Sickening Dreams, we're just gonna face half of that. So again, essentially, as long as we've got enough cards in our hand to take out all of our opponents with enough damage, which typically we're going to, unless our opponents can get to, an absurd amount of life, and as long as we can survive half the amount of damage that we need to deal to our opponents, we're gonna be fine. I mean, and I guess by we're gonna be fine, we're going to win, because our opponents are gonna be dealt lethal damage, and we're gonna survive. So again, before you cast Sickening Dreams, just play Dark Sphere, and watch your opponents probably be just a little confused as to what is going on, because it's a pretty strange card to have. But then when you cast Sickening Dreams, things might start to click for them. But by then, it very well might be too late. Again, say your opponents even have their starting life total at 40, and you've got, all the way down to 21 life, you've got enough life to survive, and your opponents are going to get taken out. You discard 40 cards, dealing 40 damage each creature and each player, and then you use Dark Sphere to prevent half of that, so then you just take 20 damage, you're going to be at 1, your opponents are gone. All because of a 2-mana spell and a 0-mana artifact. Isn't that fun? And yeah, outside of those 3 cards, Ad Nauseam, Dark Sphere, and Sickening Dreams, the rest of the deck can literally just be 96 swamps. I mean, how many decks out there can claim to not only just, function, but actually win with 96 swamps in the deck? Probably not many. Now, of course, there are plenty of different ways that we can actually tackle this concept and some other kinds of cards we might want to consider, so let's jump into them now. The first thing is that we can actually switch up the commander to Sidisi Undead Vizier. Sidisi is a 4/6 zombie Naga with Death Touch that has Exploit, and she costs 3 black. Exploit means that when this creature enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice a creature. Which, of course, you want to do with Sidisi, because it says, whenever Sidisi Undead Vizier exploits a creature, you may search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. And of course, Sidisi can exploit herself, so essentially, this is a tutor in the command zone. Now, obviously there are some advantages and disadvantages between Sidisi and Varragoth. First up, I just want to point this out, and I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but with this 96 land deck, I tried to make it as budget-friendly as possible, and Varragoth is much more budget-friendly than Sidisi. I'll go through the cost differences at the end of the episode and the cost breakdown, but basically, at a high level, Sidisi is a $12 card, and, Varragoth is like a buck or two. Price differences aside, obviously there is a mana cost difference as well. Or at least there kind of is. Again, Varragoth does cost 3, but to boast you've got to attack and pay 2, so that's 5 mana in total, which is just, the exact same as Sidisi's cost. And obviously another key difference again with that is that you actually have to attack with Varragoth, which doesn't change the timing really of this, it just changes that you, need to actually have Varragoth in play to attack with and needs to stick around at least that long. Whereas Sidisi doesn't have to stick around, and in fact, you're definitely counting on her not sticking around because you're just going to sacrifice her to her own exploit trigger. So she's an immediate tutor that gets the card right into your hand, whereas Varragoth is a kind of delayed tutor, let's say, that gets it on top of your library. Now, it really doesn't matter all that much that goes on top of your library, unless someone mills you, because, you don't really care about having the card in your hand right away. And just keep in mind that Sidisi could potentially get shut down by something like a Torpor Orb or, like a Hushbringer, so there is that factor as well. Or, if an opponent can stop you from attacking with Varragoth, that's another factor. Again, each of these has their advantages and disadvantages over the other, and the reason I stick with Varragoth, is, obviously, again, the price difference, and then also, I just think Varragoth is probably going to be seen as less threatening than a Sidisi commander. Obviously with this exact same build, you just be kind of sitting around and twiddling your thumbs with your Sidisi commander, and you just be playing land after land after land after land for 5 turns, then finally your commander. Your opponents might expect that something is up. Whereas again, on turn 3, casting your commander on curve, with Varragoth, and then attacking the next turn and utilizing the ability, your opponents might be less suspicious of that. But again, everyone's got their personal preferences, so if you're wanting to build this deck, pick whichever commander you want. Speaking of which, another commander to potentially consider for this build is Marilyn of the Mornsong. Now, this commander is actually even more expensive than Sidisi. I think the last time I looked, it was around $18 or so yeah, quite the pricey card. Regardless, she's a 2/3 elf wizard that costs 1 black, and she says players can't draw cards. And at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player loses 3 life, searches their library for a card, puts it into their hand, then shuffles their library. So obviously this is a very interesting commander, essentially shutting players off of card draw, but letting everyone tutor instead. That being said, because this commander does that, your opponents might be afraid of something other than Sickening Dreams. They might be afraid of, Opposition Agent, which has essentially a 2-card combo with this tutoring commander, so yeah, your opponents are probably just going to tutor for some removal, which, Marilyn actually gives them the ability to do so yeah, that is one major downside to this commander. That being said, obviously, since this commander can potentially fill the same role, I just felt like I needed to bring it up, even though, again, it is more expensive and, yeah, probably is going to get stopped more often. And speaking of filling the same role, another card that I really want to bring up that can fit a similar role to Dark Sphere, and potentially even a better one, is Glacial Chasm. Glacial Chasm is a very old land all the way back from Ice Age, and its Oracle text reads, Cumulative Upkeep, 2 life. So again, Cumulative Upkeep is a very old mechanic. Basically, at the beginning of your upkeep, you get an age counter on it, then you sacrifice unless you pay its upkeep cost for each age counter on it. When it enters the battlefield, you need to sacrifice a land, and it says creatures you control can't attack. Prevent all damage to be dealt to you. So actually, if you want to make this a 97 land deck, you could, just by taking out Dark Sphere and putting this in. Because essentially with this, on that turn that you're going to be casting Sickening Dreams, you just put this down as your land for the turn, and then you say, hey, okay, well, I sacrifice a land. Oh no, my creature can't attack, but I guess all the damage that's going to be dealt to me is prevented, so cast Sickening Dreams, discard every single card in my hand, ping everything for a ton. In all honesty, it's probably a safer way to go about it. For the most part, players are going to have more artifact removal than land removal, so yeah, there's that. And price-wise, it's actually pretty comparable to Dark Sphere as well. Now, obviously, if you're not set on making this, a 97 or 96 land deck, there are obviously certain adjustments that you can make to it to make it more potent. Obviously, ramp or, temporary ramp spells are going to help you get to things faster, with things like Soul Ring, Jewel Lotus, and Dark Ritual. Soul Ring is, of course, an artifact that costs 1 and taps for colorless, so yeah, a 1-mana artifact that taps for 2. This is an incredibly efficient, and that's still putting it lightly, mana rock. So getting this out on turn 1 can really speed up your clock and help you get this combo off even quicker. And speaking of speeding up your clock, of course, you can utilize something like Jewel Lotus, if you're willing to spend $85 on this card or whatever it is, an artifact for a 0, tap, sacrifice it, add 3 mana of one color, spend this mana only to cast your commander. So basically a Black Lotus for your commander, and yeah, in this kind of a deck, this can help you get your commander out really quickly. Speaking of which, of course, there's a much more budget-friendly Dark Ritual, which is still an incredibly powerful card in the right deck, an instant for a black that's going to add black, black, black to your mana pool. So again, if you're not set on having essentially the most lands that you can possibly have for a deck like this, whether that be, 97 or 96, you can obviously make some improvements by adding different cards to it. But yeah, if you like your meme deck built around an absurd amount of swamps, go for it. But again, make sure you keep in mind your total converted mana cost for the cards in your deck because, again, you are going to be losing life based on them from ad nauseum. And actually, again, of course, you can still have a 96 or 97 lands deck without, just including just basics, though it is kind of cool when you just have basics, but still, let's highlight some other lands that you might want to consider to replace some of those swamps if you want to make the deck just a bit more potent. First up, depending again on which of the combinations that you choose and which commander that you choose for the deck, some lands that can help you speed things up are cards like Eben Stronghold, Peat Bog, and Subterranean Hangar. And actually, I think I just said Eben Stronghold, and I think it's Eben Stronghold, but please correct me below in the comments if I'm wrong. Anyways, Eben Stronghold comes into play tapped. It taps for a black, and you can tap it to sacrifice it and add black, black to your mana pool. Peat Bog comes into play tapped with 2 depletion counters on it. By tapping it, you can remove a depletion counter from it to add black, black to your mana pool, and if there are no depletion counters on it, you sacrifice it. And then Subterranean Hangar comes into play tapped. You can tap to put a storage counter on it, and tap to remove any number of storage counters from it to add 1 black mana to your mana pool for each storage counter removed this way. So each of these obviously can help you out in different ways, but essentially at the end of the day, they can each add multiple mana to your mana pool. Next up, how about cards like Mage Ring Network, Thespian Stage, and I'm going to point out Gold Border version Crystal Vein. I try to only highlight budget cards that meet my usual restrictions in these recommendations, with cards being under $1, and there is a Gold Border version of Crystal Vein, which many playgroups out there, including mine, are completely fine with playing with, and this one is under $1. Regardless, Mage Ring Network can tap for a colorless. You can pay 1 and tap to put a storage counter on it, and you can tap to remove any number of storage counters from it to add colorless for each storage counter removed this way. Thespian Stage can tap for a colorless, and by paying 2, you can tap, and Thespian Stage becomes a copy of target land, except it has this ability. So if you've got one of your other lands in play that can essentially tap for 2 mana, great, use one of those. Or maybe your opponent's got a land that can tap for 2 mana. I mean, they might have put a bounce land into play, and now this can tap for 2. And of course, Crystal Vein can tap for a colorless, and by tapping, you can sacrifice to add colorless to your mana pool. And speaking of lands that tap for multiple mana, of course, I've got to bring up the Tron lands as well. Each of these lands just tap for a colorless, but when you've got all 3 in play, they tap for much more. Because with all 3 of these in play, Urza's Mine and Urza's Power Plant are each going to tap for 2, and Urza's Tower is going to tap for 3, so that is a total of 7 mana between these 3 lands. Now, are you going to have to get lucky to get all 3 of these lands early enough for them to make a big difference? Probably, but it can definitely happen. And yeah, there's essentially no risk in putting these in the deck because you're basically always going to have access to enough black sources, again, with the number of swamps that you're going to be running, and again, with the non-basics that I've been bringing up and will continue to bring up that can tap for black. Like these, with cards like Barren Moor, Desert of the Glorified, and Polluted Mire. Each of these do enter the battlefield tapped, tap for a black, and can cycle. Barren Moor has cycling for a black, Desert of the Glorified has cycling for 1 and a black, and Polluted Mire has cycling for 2. So if you want to cycle these away to draw a card, great, which can actually come in really handy again with your commander putting that card on top of your library. So if an opponent does try to mill you when you get that on top, well, just cycle one of these away, draw that card, and now it's in your hand, which is safe for the most part. Regardless, again, there really isn't that much of a downside, even to lands that come into play tap for this deck, because again, you're going to have so many lands that come into play tap that you've got access to, that chances are incredibly unlikely that you're not going to hit your land drops that you need to hit. Because, yeah, for the first 2 of your turns, you can literally display tap lands, and it doesn't matter. And then you've got plenty of other untapped lands in the deck that you can then use for the next turns. Like, Blasted Landscape or Zolfir and Void or the Biblioplex. Blasted Landscape can tap for a colorless, or we can cycle it for 2. Zhalfirin Void also taps for a colorless, and when it enters the battlefield, we scry 1. And then the Biblioplex can tap for a colorless, so we can pay 2 and tap to look at the top card of our library. If it's an instant or sorcery card, we can reveal it and put it in our hand. If we don't put it in our hand, we can put it in our graveyard. Activate only if you control exactly 0 or 7 cards in hand. Again, since we're essentially just playing lands to start, having 7 cards in our hand is basically exactly what we're going to have pretty much all the time. You know, until we actually cast Ad Nauseam, then we have our entire deck in our hand. Next up, another card that you might want to just throw in there, which, you know, can help you out, is Ash Barrens. It has basic land cycling for 1 and taps for a colorless. If you want to thin your deck for whatever reason, this can help in a very small way. And then Archarazka has Ascend. You can tap for a colorless with it, or you can pay 5 and tap to draw a card. Activate this only if you have the City's Blessing. And then Cryptic Caves can tap for a colorless, so by paying 1 and tapping and sacrificing it, we draw a card. Activate only if we control 5 or more lands. Now, these last 2 are kind of more questionable, but I still wanted to bring them up in case, there's a variation to this build that just doesn't completely revolve around this combo, because, well, each of these are going to be utilized later, which you probably won't need, after you've already gotten, your combo off. That being said, some lands that can definitely help you out in certain circumstances are Radiant Fountain and Seraph Sanctuary. Each of these can tap for a colorless, and Radiant Fountain's going to gain you 2 life when it comes into play, and Seraph Sanctuary is going to gain you 1. Again, 1 or 2 life really might not seem like all that much, but it can definitely make a difference again when you're trying to prevent a certain amount of damage being dealt to you if you are using that Dark Sphere part of the combo. An extra life could be just what you need for that difference between, your opponent's life total and half of your own. So because of that, I'm also going to bring up Piranha Marsh in Sun-Scorched Desert. Piranha Marsh is going to enter the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, target player loses 1 life, and you can tap it to add a black to your mana pool. Sun-Scorched Desert has when it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target player, and you can tap to add colors to your mana pool. Again, 1 life loss or, 1 damage might not seem like all that much, but it can make a difference when you're trying to get to an exact amount. Or I guess I should say when you're trying to make it easier to get to that amount. Next up, some other cards that you might want to consider are cards that can throw a wrench into your opponent's plans with things like Field of Ruin, Tectonic Edge, and Encroaching Wastes. Each of these can tap for a colorless, and Field of Ruin has pay 2, tap, sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield, then shuffles. Tectonic Edge has pay 1, tap, sacrifice, destroy target non-basic land, but activates ability only if an opponent controls 4 or more lands. And then Encroaching Wastes has pay 4, tap, sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land. So in some circumstances, it really might be worth losing a land to get rid of a non-basic land opponent controls if it is a problematic one. I mean, if your opponent has a Glacial Chasm, you're gonna want to get rid of that. And speaking of dealing with your opponent's things, we can deal with some other things with things like Blinkmoth Well, Blighted Fen, and Underdark Rift. Blinkmoth Well has pay 2, tap, tap target non-creature artifact. Blighted Fen has pay 4 and a black, tap, sacrifice it, target opponent sacrifices a creature. And Underdark Rift can tap for a color, so by paying 5, we tap it and exile it to roll a d10. We put target artifact, creature, or planeswalker into its owner's library just beneath the top X cards of that library, where X is the result. Activate only as a sorcery. So each of these can obviously help out in different ways, and yeah, there are going to be plenty of times when we don't need these, but having them in the deck really doesn't take up all that much space, obviously, and just having them as an extra option just in case is nice. So of course, we can also include some cards like Labyrinth of Scophos and Mystifying Maze. Labyrinth of Scophos has pay 4 and tap, remove target attacking or blocking creature from combat. And Mystifying Maze is somewhat similar. It has pay 4, tap, exile target attacking creature and opponent controls at the beginning of the next end step, return to the battlefield tapped on its owner's control. Again, basically only for emergency, save and combat situations, but it really doesn't hurt to have them in the deck. So we can also utilize some lands that can turn into creatures with things like Mishra's Factory, Mobilized District, and Crawling Barrens. Mishra's Factory has pay 1, it becomes a 2/2 Assembly Worker artifact creature until end of turn, it's still a land. Mobilized District has pay 4, it becomes a 3/3 Citizen creature with Vigilance until end of turn, it's still a land. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature and planeswalker you control. And Crawling Barrens has pay 4, put 2/1 counters on Crawling Barrens, and you may have it become a 0/0 elemental creature until end of turn, it's still a land. Again, having the option as these just on the ground as potential blockers even doesn't hurt. For example, an opponent might think twice to just chip in some damage at you early if you've got Mishra's Factory in play that you can just turn into a creature. Speaking of which, we can also include some cards like Spawning Pool, Cradle of the Accursed, and Foundry of the Consoles. Spawning Pool comes into play tapped, it can tap for a black, and it has pay 1 and a black. It becomes a 1/1 black skeleton creature token with pay a black, regenerate this creature until end of turn, it's still a land. Cradle of the Accursed can tap for a color, so we can pay 3 and tap and sacrifice it to get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And then Foundry of the Consoles is somewhat similar to that. It can tap for a color, so by paying 5, we can tap and sacrifice it to make 2 1/1 Thopters with flying. Again, we're hoping not to have to use these in these ways, but you know what? We have them just in case. Speaking of which, you also might want to consider cards like Witch's Cottage, Mortuary Mire, and Haunted Fengraf. Witch's Cottage is going to enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other swamps. When it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Mortuary Mire is going to enter the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. It taps for a black. And then Haunted Fengraf can tap for a colorless, and by paying 3, you can tap and sacrifice it to turn a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Again, probably not all that necessary, but again, if with a certain build version of this deck, if you need a way to get your commander back to your hand and you want to skip out on commander attacks, including these in the deck is really not all that big of a deal. And speaking of getting something back, let's talk about Buried Ruin. It taps for a colorless, and by paying 2 and tapping and sacrificing it, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you want some extra assurance that you can get Dark Sphere back, if you really need to, go for it. Or if you want an extra assurance that you've got an indestructible land, cool, use Darksteel Citadel, an artifact land that is indestructible and taps for a colorless. Or if you might want the option to do some of these things at instant speed, use Emergence Zone. It can tap for a colorless, and by paying 1 and tapping and sacrificing it, you can cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So if you want to combo off on an opponent's turn, go for it. And finally, some quote-unquote lands that I want to bring up are some MDFC lands with Pelika Predation and Zoth Consumption. Again, each of these are sorceries on the front of the card, and on the backside we've got a land that can tap for a black, but it does enter the battlefield tapped. Pelika Predation says, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a card from it with converted mana cost 3 or greater, that player discards that card. And Zoth Consumption says each opponent loses 4 life, and you gain 4 life. Again, some might consider that cheating if you're, saying, okay, I've got 96 or 97 lands in my deck, but you've got 2 of these. I don't really consider that cheating. They're still basically lands essentially on the backside again, but, do what you want to do. And speaking of doing what you want to do, again, if you want to, you can take this concept and make it into whatever you want it to be. Again, pick the lands that you want, pick the commander that you want, pick the combo piece that you might want to switch out for something else. But with the first version of the deck that I did bring up, the estimated cost of this deck is very budget friendly at just $26.40. And again, that's including a card like Ad Nauseam, which is like $10, and Dark Sphere, which is around $5. And actually, that estimated cost also includes every single one of those 96 basic lands at 10 cents a piece. So that's $9.60 off that price as well if you already have those basics. So at the end of the day, if you've already got those basics, this is what, like a $16 or $17 deck or so? And obviously another version might be one that, includes those lands that I brought up as well, and that estimated cost is $41.22, and keep in mind, again, the basics in this cost are still costed at 10 cents a piece. So it can be even more budget friendly than that. Obviously, if you want to build this around Sidisi as well, it's still decently budget friendly too, with Sidisi being what, a like $10 or $12 card or whatnot. Or if you want to go with the Maryland of the Mornsong deck, well then you know what, that's an $18 card that's included in there, so it's a $43 deck. Again, take this concept in whatever direction that you want. And if you're looking to save potentially even more, on top of already potentially having those basic lands, if you buy this deck on TCG Player and utilize heavily played and damage cards, you might be able to save even more. Though keep in mind that these estimated costs don't include shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. Regardless, at the end of the day, is this the most powerful deck in the world? No, it's a really fun concept. Again, utilizing 96 swamps in a deck is something that is, well, pretty out there. And also keep in mind, for playgroups that don't enjoy combo decks, well, like combos such as this one might not be welcome in those playgroups, so please do keep that in mind. And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.